When I was small, I had a friend named Emily that lived in my closet. She wore a white dress, had long black hair, and a red ribbon. She always had her back to me when we would play and talk. My Nana mentioned hearing me and another voice when I play with my Barbies, and she would come in and I would be alone, but Emily would be there with me, but she assumed I was just doing a funny voice. There was a time when I went down the street to another friend's house and watched Emily push the friend off the swing. The friend sprained her wrist, and I kept saying it wasn't me, that it was Emily. The friend's parents were very unhappy, and Nana said I was a liar. I told Emily that I was too old for imaginary friends. Nana said so, and she didn't like that. I would wake up on multiple occasions, being pulled out of my bed by something holding my ankle, and the foot of my bed faced the closet. One night, I finally saw her face. She didn't have eyes, they looked gouged out, and her mouth was sewn shut. I still to this day cannot sleep with my closet door open. I've also seen her in a few other houses, not just my Nana's. I spent from age 12 to 18 permanently in foster care, whole other story. At my junior year, I had been finally moved into my own bedroom. We were painting the walls, and for some reason, the closet walls too. There were no small children in the house. We were all middle and high school age. When I came home from school, I felt really sick walking into my room. On the mirror, it looked like someone had blown their breath onto it and wrote, "I can't eat." There were child-sized handprints inside my closet that were physically impossible compared to everyone else in the house. My foster mom also felt that something was wrong when she walked into my room, and being a devout Christian, she punished me by calling me a Satanist and took away all my non-Christian music and any clothes I owned that were black. No matter how much time I tried to clean the mirror, that spot never went away. I could breathe on that spot, and the words would still be there, so I covered that part of the mirror up with pictures. Over the rest of the time there, I would wake up occasionally with scratches all over me. She assumed I was doing it to myself, which always made me feel worse. Shortly before I graduated, her biological son, a sophomore at the time, was woken up to a girl in a white dress with long black hair and a red ribbon standing next to his bed. I'd never told anyone in the house what Emily looked like. I thankfully hadn't seen her since my early 20s, but the trauma still remains. I'm still afraid of the dark. I'm still afraid of closets. I'm pretty sure she wasn't a ghost, but something far worse, due to the fact she followed me through multiple houses throughout my younger years. I grew up in the 90s in Minnesota. My parents divorced when I was 8, and we spent every other weekend at my dad's haunted house. This house had every type of ghost you could think of. A shadow man in a trench coat and a brimmed hat. Another separate shadow figure that danced down the hallway. A man dressed to go fishing. A doppelganger of my father. 2 giggling little girl ghosts. And many other unseen entities. The dishwasher, radios, and lights would turn themselves on and off randomly. Loud banging would be heard on the walls and doors. Door handles would jiggle and turn on their own. Feelings of being touched or caressed in the shower were reported. My father also had an incident where he felt someone crawl into bed with him in the middle of the night when he was the only one home. My uncle reported hearing 2 little girls giggling and singing in the basement one night while sleeping downstairs. Upon awakening the next morning, he discovered there were no kids in the house that night. So who did he hear playing in the middle of the night? Also, there was a salamander plague one night. The entire yard was covered in slimy, slithering salamanders. It only ever happened once. Not positive if that's paranormal, but it's certainly strange. One sunny Saturday morning while visiting my dad, my brothers and I were up early watching cartoons. I was 8 years old, and my brother was 3. As we sat on the couch, we heard 3 alerting knocking sounds on the wall, 5 to 6 feet behind us. Knock, knock, knock. Our heads quickly snapped back to look at the wall where the sound was coming from, but we saw nothing. My brother and I quickly turned to look at each other with frightened eyes. I, being the older sister, tried to be brave. I told him it was nothing. As we turn our attention back to the cartoons, my little 8-year-old brain is spinning. What if that banging noise we just heard wasn't just the pipes, as I had been told so many times? What if it was a ghost? I hate when the ghosts come around. Why isn't my dad around whenever this happens? As these thoughts swirl in my head, we hear it again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, it's coming from somewhere in the kitchen, off to our left. It's not as loud as the first time, and the sound is different, like someone is knocking on the kitchen counter this time, instead of the wall. We quickly strain our necks to peek inside the kitchen with lightning speed to catch whomever or whatever is making that noise. Again, there's nothing there. I take a deep breath. Once again, I pretended to be brave and tell my brother, "It's nothing, just ignore it." My heart is thumping in my chest, and there are butterflies in my tummy as the familiar anxiety grows worse with each passing second. I tuck myself up on the couch in a ball, not wanting my legs to dangle off the side. I no longer feel safe. Nothing is to be trusted. Knock, knock, knock. This time, the sound is coming from the dining room. I can tell the noise is coming from the wooden dining table this time. I can see the entire table from where I'm sitting, and there's nothing on the table that should be making that noise. No one except me and my brother are awake. There's no one in the dining room. There is no logical reason for this knocking noise that is moving around us. Just then, I realize the knocking sounds have been moving in a big circle around us. If this invisible entity is to move any closer to us, the next logical place for it to be would be in the living room, where me and my brother are currently sitting. The knock would be on the coffee table, sitting less than a foot away. No sooner than that thought crossed my mind, it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, the noise was coming from the coffee table, sitting less than a foot away from us. I instantly flip over the back of my couch in a reverse somersault-like motion and run at superhuman speed to my father's bedroom. In my panic, I completely left my little 3-year-old brother behind to fend for himself. Luckily, he wasn't too far behind. We sneak into our father's room and quietly lay on the floor. Our dad would have been super pissed if we woke him up early on a Saturday morning, even for a ghost. In our commotion, we wake up our 6-year-old sister, who is sleeping on our dad's floor. Us 3 kids always slept on his floor together when we were visiting. We also used the bathroom together. That's how terrified of the ghosts we were. So, we quietly whisper what just happened out in the living room to our sister. As we're telling her the story, something catches our eye. We can see a black shadow under the small space between the bottom of the door and the plush carpet. This black shadow is slowly pacing back and forth in the hallway, just on the other side of the bedroom door. Back and forth, like the shadow is waiting for us. Unfortunately, I don't remember what happened after this point. Somehow the rest of the memory has been lost with time, but I know for sure we didn't open that door. This is a long story, but good, and as true as 33 years of time-faded memory can allow, I'd like to think I remember it vividly. Background first. When I was in 2nd grade, my parents got divorced, and my mom moved my 2 brothers, my sister and I'm the youngest, into a rental house. Looking back on it now, as an adult, it was a terrible place, but it was what my mom could afford. The floors were uneven, the house was sided in roofing shingles, the stairs shook as you walked up, and the stove required an external propane tank. There was also a dirt floor cellar with an awesome little hiding place under the stairs. Definitely a hell house, the stereotypical house for a haunting. For 7 to 8-year-old me, though, it was awesome. It was also my first house that didn't have wheels. My newly single mom would go on dates every weekend and would leave me with my 15-year-old sister to babysit. As soon as my mom would leave, though, my sister would bolt to a party or boyfriend's house. My oldest brother was 20 and would only come home when the mood suited, and my other brother would always go to a friend's house a few blocks away. I was 8 years old, alone, in what I now know was a crappy house. Another important point to note is that there was the master bedroom, bathroom, dining room, and kitchen on the ground floor. Upstairs, there were 3 rooms: my sister's room, my room that I shared with the middle brother, and the other room with a padlocked door. Now, it's story time. I had always heard funny noises in the house, but my mom always told me it was just an old house, and my siblings never really paid any attention. But one of these wonderful Friday or Saturday nights, I was alone in the house and watching TV. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs and a child's giggle. I look over at the stairs, and there was nothing there. I hear more footsteps, nothing there. It's just an old house. More footsteps coming from the kitchen and down the stairs to the cellar. The noise stopped for a while, and I settled down and just watched TV. About 15 minutes later, I hear someone running up the stairs and into the doorway leading into the living room, and they just stop. 8-year-old me is freaking out. So is 41-year-old me, remembering it. But that was it at first. Fast forward a few weeks of horrified and ignored me, spending my Friday nights sitting by myself while no one in the family could possibly be bothered to stay home with me. Something always happened, and I was always told it was just an old house, or I was imagining it. And then my imagination spoke to me.
Hi, do you want to come play with me? I'm bored.
I didn't see anyone there and just thought my sister left her radio on or something.
Let's play.
I look back towards the dining room, and there's a little girl, about 7 or 8 herself, standing there. She looked vaguely like one of the kids that lived behind us. But before I could ask why she was in my house, she giggled and ran off and went straight upstairs. I ran after her. I bolted up the stairs and saw her at the top landing. As she ran off again, past my sister's door, past my door, around the top of the stairs, and into the third door, slamming it behind her. Remember what I said about the third door? It was padlocked shut. I ran downstairs, didn't stop to put on shoes, out the front door, and around the back of the house to the detached garage, and hid there until someone came home. I guess the mood suited him, because my oldest brother came home. At first he was pissed at my mom and sister for leaving me home by myself, but finally asked me what happened. He didn't believe my story at first. Who would? Until he looked up at the window to that third room. The light was on. We stayed in the garage for a while until I was okay with going back inside, during which time my sister got home, and she got one hell of an ass chewing. The 3 of us go inside, and they leave me to sit in the living room while they investigate my story. I heard them messing with the padlock, and then a loud crash, some stuff moving around, and then, oh, holy shit! Click of a light switch, slamming door, running footsteps down the stairs, and then I see my brother and sister sprinting towards me as they pick me up, and we all load up in my brother's car and drove to my grandparents' house 2 towns away. We told them the story, and then I heard what they found in the room. It was a lot of furniture and stuff, but my brother said he found a picture that looked just like the little girl I told him about, and my sister found a rug that was stained with what was just either red wine or blood. She didn't wait around to find out. They just grabbed me and booked it. I never had to step foot in that house again. Fast forward many years, about 20 years. I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps. I was working as a corrections officer in my home state. I was helping with inmate files. I noticed a familiar address. It was that house. Here's the rest of the story as I know it. After we moved out, my brother had called the police because of some of the other stuff that was in the room, and apparently there was an investigation. The red stuff that my sister found on the rug was a blood stain. As this was the 80s and a very small town, DNA wasn't yet a forensic tool, so they couldn't tell whose blood it was, only that it was human. The neighbor said that the father of the family that owned the house was always drunk, and they suspected abuse of the mother and daughter. Then, one day, they suddenly just left for Arizona and rented out the house to subsidize income, locking up all the furniture and stuff in that one room. The parents were arrested on an unrelated charge after the house was condemned and they had to get their stuff out. But they never did find the little girl until, in preparation for demo, they were digging in the cellar in my little hiding spot under the stairs. Hi friends, I hope you're staying safe. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me. Thank you for listening. Sweet dreams.